Hi friends, welcome back to Deep Space. I'm really excited about today. Today I'm going to be answering our first question from you guys, from the audience, stuff that you would like to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's pretty heavy stuff, but I think it's going to be really good, and it's pretty important stuff. First question is from Sam. Sam writes, "Hi Ben, I have a question for you for Deep Space. My boyfriend and I broke up a while ago, and I'm having a really hard time with it. We were together for a long time, and he means a lot to me. He doesn't seem to care at all about what happened, and I feel like I care too much. Any advice on how to get over it?" Sam, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. That kind of pain, breakup pain, is some of the very, very worst that we can experience as humans. That kind of pain cuts really deep, and that's really kind of you to let us be a part of that to see if we can be helpful. But you are not alone in this pain. It is unfortunately all too common in our experience as humans. Something that might be helpful for you that somebody taught me. I was actually my partner in my counseling practice now, Vanessa Knight. She taught me this all the way back in grad school, actually. Something that can be really helpful in working our way through stuff like this, because it can be pretty brutal. It can be hard to find our way through. So when thinking about grief, there's two different directions that our feelings go as we're working our way through it. One direction is towards the past, right? And the other is towards the future, past and future. Past-oriented stuff is like when you're playing your couple's song over and over, and you're looking over old pictures, and you're in it, you're back in that past place, right? We're in that past orientation. Future is when you're moving forward, when you're moving on, when you're thinking about dating somebody else, when you are having just a good day, when you recognize, wow, this is the first good day I've had in a while. That feels pretty good. You're moving in that future orientation, right? So this is how this works, and this is how it works if we let it. We're on a pretty extreme side of one of these, right? And then we swing pretty far over to the other side. So we're in that past, we're looking back, and then we swing pretty far over to looking forward, ready to move forward with some stuff. And then if we let it, we find ourselves going back to the past again. We feel that pain, we feel the sadness, we feel the weight of that, and then we move to the future, and then we move to the past, and this thing just kind of flows, right? Our grief just sort of flows, and you notice that as it flows, you can see how each revolution of that is a little bit less extreme than the one before it. And it ends up kind of looking like a tornado. We call it the grief tornado. The edges get taken out each time. So when I'm going back to the past and I'm wrecked by how much I miss him, how much it hurts a little bit less than the revolution before it. And when I'm like moving forward and I'm feeling the thrill of like, wow, I am having a good day and I am not caught up in the pain of this, that kind of settles down too. And eventually I find my way down to the bottom of this thing where I'm just in the present, right? You're through it. You're not living life oriented to like, man, I feel so much better, or I can't believe how much I hurt. You're not in either one of those extremes. You're just in the present. You're just back to living like you. We kind of pick one of these sides that we prefer. Do you want to move on and never feel that pain again? Or do you feel like moving on would be some sort of a disservice? Are you holding on to this thing hoping that it's going to somehow work out, or that if you leave it, then it finally actually is over? Especially with like death and loss, sometimes it's like, I'm not selling that person's clothes. I'm leaving their room exactly how I found it, because to move forward feels like a betrayal or an abandonment somehow. And so what will happen is we'll get stuck on one of these. We'll take one of these revolutions, one of these rotations from past to future, and we'll like spread it out, and we'll make it last like 10 years. We'll try to make it last forever. We'll try to take this future loop right here, and we're going to make it last for the next 5 years. And then all of a sudden, somehow, something happens. We hear that song, or we see them at a reunion or something, and we're launched back into the past, and we feel the weight of all that grief, all that loss, how much we miss them, and we're just like, nope, and we go right back to the future, and then we take the next rotation, and we make that one last for 10 years. And basically what we do is we apply our intentions, we force ourselves into one of these positions or the other, and then we don't let the thing flow. We don't let our emotions move. If we let them, they'll heal naturally, right? This process is kind of like our emotional version of a bone that's broken that works its way back to healing. This is like our heart coming back together, and Sam, yours is going to do that. If you let it, it's going to be okay. You're going to find your way through this. It'll be all right. When you feel better, let yourself feel better, because you can kind of see that your boyfriend might be over on this side trying to camp out over here, as he's saying like, it didn't matter to me, and I'm not going to let myself feel it, and I'm kind of I'm just so over it that I'm not going to let any of this matter to me. And so he doesn't let that grief flow for him from this side. And you might be over on this side where you're not letting that grief flow. You're not letting it move because you're still holding on to this maybe, or there's something that you're hoping for. And I don't mean like, hey, if you're still hurting, it's your fault, you're not doing it right. That's not it at all. Even when you do allow this process to happen, these swings over here might take a while, right? And they might really hurt. So it might not be that you're not letting this thing flow. It might be that you're in the middle of this process. You might just be on this revolution right here, right? Or it could be that you're still up in one of these and you're resisting letting this one go over here. What we want to do with grief is let it do what it does. It's a natural process. Grief is a process of healing. It's how we get put back together. And it flows like this. The edges come out of it. At first, it's super intense. I mean, the beginnings of this thing are so strong that it feels pretty overwhelming. And sometimes that's what people will resist, letting it move, letting it flow, because it's so strong. So the moral of the story in all this, Sam, is you're going to heal. Even as we're talking right now, you're coming back together. Your past stuff is a little bit less every time you go through it, if you let it do what it does. Your future stuff is not quite so intense. Every time that you move forward a little bit, the thrill of like, wow, I am not stuck in grief in the same way becomes less about this is different and more just back to feeling like I'm in normal life. If you're really stuck on any of that, can't move forward, sometimes it can help to talk to somebody. They can help unstick it a little bit with you, right? Or if you're stuck in the future, if you're more like your ex, he might benefit from having somebody that can help him face what's behind. Grief is not something that we want to minimize, but it's also not something that we want to resist. We don't want to run from it. If you hide from grief, if you decide that you don't like that process and you're going to try to somehow skip it, you really prolong it. I remember when my grandma died, I was 19 years old. I wasn't ready to face that. My grandma and I were really super close. She was a saint. I love her with my whole heart. If any of my siblings are watching, you might want to skip this next part, but I was totally her favorite. We connected really closely, my grandma and I. She's just a really wonderful person. She was there for me, and when she died, I was kind of caught up in a lot of like drugs and alcohol and stuff, and I couldn't face it. So I moved to that future orientation really, really fast. And I stuck there, and I stayed there, and any time that I would find myself trying to go back to the past, I would resist it, and I would run away into drugs, alcohol, girls, whatever. I would hide from that. And so I prolonged that, and so I did not let myself move through that process, and it took years. I was actually like 23, 24 years old, 4 or 5 years later, and I literally would not, up to that point, I was not allowing myself to think about my grandma. I was driving across Kansas from Denver to a wrestling match in Wichita. And so like 9 hours on the road, and a song came on the radio, actually on my CD player back when that's what we were rolling with CD players, and Jimmy Eat World, Hear You Me, really powerful, really spoke exactly to my situation with my grandmother. I felt like her when I listened to it. And so at that point, I don't know if it was just good sense or I lucked out, but I just let myself remember everything I could remember about her. I thought about every detail of growing up and going to her house while my sister was in Kansas City fighting for her life, how grandma saw us through that, and how we would sleep on the living room floor and the brown and the tan shag carpeting in the living room, and how we would watch cable TV. Grandma would wake up at like 5 to go make breakfast and coffee. And I let it all flow, and I wept. I just wept for 9 hours straight. I wept screaming the words to Jimmy Eat World, Hear You Me, top of my lungs. I mean, I just let it all go. And it was like I had been in that future position for so long that when I let myself go past, it was just this big rush. And I rushed over this past side. And from there, man, that thing just flowed. It flowed over the next couple of years until I'm at the point where I am now, where I can talk about this. I can talk about my grandma Evelyn Olson, who I love with my whole heart. And I'm not overwhelmed by it. See, that's the problem. If you skip this, like what your ex is attempting to do, if you ever come up for him, if he ever somehow taps into those emotions, he's not gonna be able to just talk about it. It's gonna wreck him. He's gonna go over that past, and he's gonna have his driving across Kansas experience at a high school reunion. You don't want that, right? You wanna face that thing and healthier timing. And so let it flow. Let it do what it's going to do. If you need help with that, let somebody else join you in that and lean on them as you process those emotions, as you work your way through it. And it's going to be okay. You're going to find yourself able, 10 years later, you're going to be able to look back on this and say, this was a really powerful, life-changing experience. It meant a lot to me, but the emotion of it has been processed and it's moved and I'm healed. And now I'm back in the present. I'm not in that future tense. I'm not in that past tense. I'm able to sit with this thing again. You're going to get there. I got your back. I'm super proud of you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us again. That means a lot. And I hope that that can be helpful to other people too that are experiencing the same thing, because again, you are not alone in that. Those of you that are grieving, you are not alone. Find support. Take really good care of yourself. Know that you're loved. Know that you matter. This process matters, and let it do what it does. If you've got any more questions like Sam did that you want to send, you can email them. Send them to our Facebook page. You guys are awesome. Thanks for doing this with me. Thanks for being a part of this. If you're into this sort of thing, feel free to share this anywhere you'd like to anybody that you think would be into it too. Coolest thing you can do with us is to subscribe to the channel. That way you can catch all the new videos that are coming. We're going to be making more. We're really looking forward to it. Thanks for being with me, guys. Love you all. Bye.